Well, this warm spring weather brings the unwelcome guests, of course, of pollen. Meteorologist Hannah Gard breaks down why it is so bad right now and what you can do to get yourself some relief.
Seasonal allergies follow a predictable pattern throughout the year, with different allergens peaking at different times. Tree pollen is one of the first to emerge, rising from February through May. In southeastern Louisiana, oak trees are one of the main culprits. Grass pollen also emerges in the spring and lingers through the summer. And Timothy grass is one of the biggest sources of grass allergens, with up to 90% of allergy sufferers sensitive to it. Then comes a second peak in the late summer through the fall, when ragweed takes over as the dominant allergen. Molds can also increase during that same stretch. Pollen is tracked using rooftop instruments, either a rotorod or a Burkhardt trap, like the one pictured here, that collect air particles over a 24-hour period. Technicians count the grains under a microscope and report the density as grains per cubic meter of air. For tree pollen, a count of over 90 is considered high. For grass, that threshold is 20. For weeds, it's 50. Pollen counts peak around midday, so if you need to be outside, your best bet is to get out early. Recent temperatures have been running warmer than usual, and that matters when it comes to allergies, because when those late winter temperatures climb, trees begin producing pollen earlier, meaning symptoms can get started sooner. The highest pollen counts fall on days that are warm, dry, and breezy, so the recent stretch of mild weather could mean an earlier and more intense start to the allergy season. And right now, those levels are already climbing. Allergy levels across the southeast, including here in Louisiana, are currently running high. So if you've already been feeling the effects, you're not imagining it. The week ahead is also looking bad for allergy sufferers, with high pollen counts expected each day through the weekend. But knowing the pattern and when to take steps to protect yourself can go a long way toward finding relief. Back to you.